A year ago, we launched a special platform called Caring for Climate, calling upon all our 5,000 participants from 120 countries to pay special attention to climate change, to develop policies, internal goals, to disclose carbon emissions, and to become also advocates vis-à-vis policymakers to push for a comprehensive plan post-Kyoto. Obviously, business in particular has a crucial role to play. Not only do they have a big say over policy making in many countries, they influence what policymakers do and say very much so, but more importantly, or as important, they have potentially the solutions that we need to mitigate climate change. Obviously, within business, it's a huge universe. You will have winners and losers. So what I'm saying now is appealing to the winners. Any change will reshuffle, if you so want, the competitive landscape. And those companies which are lagging behind or are on the wrong side, if you so want, of where the preferences are going on climate change and how carbon prices will impact on their core business, they have a challenge. But on the leaders who recognize early on that indeed carbon emissions will carry a significant price at some point, that environmental externalities will be costed at some point, for those it requires actually quite something. It requires a strategic rethinking of the entire operations. It is not enough just to measure end of the pipe impact. You need to look forward, investment strategies, internal policies, product design, consumer preferences of the future, and you need to make educated bets on low carbon services and products. And that requires strategic foresight. It requires a serious internal rethinking of how climate change affects markets and business. To our surprise, more and more companies from emerging markets are taking action or are ready to take action. Only a year ago, it was next to impossible in India or China or Brazil or Russia to win over business for a proactive action on climate change. They largely would argue that it's the prerogative of governments and they wouldn't want to interfere. That has changed. This year, we can say most globally oriented companies recognize the need for action and they are now exploring what to do. And why is that so? Because it doesn't matter where a company is headquartered. Increasingly, companies are integrated in the global value chain, and it doesn't matter where you come from, what your history is. If you want to be successful on the global stage, if you want to compete, then you have to be able to tackle these issues. And any company coming from any emerging market that wants to become a world leader, establish its brand, needs to get on top of this agenda, needs to take action. Well, obviously there is the green economy, which is expanding, which is still heavily subsidized, and it hasn't really, it has gone a long way in certain product segments already on energy alternatives and so forth. But we also know it still has a long way to go. McKinsey concluded recently that 50% of energy growth could be saved if indeed existing technologies were diffused widely and applied widely. Secondly, we haven't seen yet the big change in consumer preferences. We all say climate change is important, we have to do something, but no real transformative radical actions have occurred yet. For that to happen, we need much deeper change processes. Ultimately, it is also a question of lifestyle. We need to re-evaluate what is important, what do we value. We need to decide what has a price for how much and why are we prepared to pay a fortune for certain luxury goods, but we are not prepared to pay for the environment. We need a re-evaluation of products and services to fully embody environmental externalities. There's no escaping it. Not necessarily. It very much depends how energy prices are going, and as you can see in the current setting, while the credit crunch crisis now is officially declared as having bottomed out, Energy prices are still shooting up. Goldman Sachs yesterday projected that within the next 2 years, the barrel of oil could cost up to $200. The appetite in emerging markets, the emerging middle class, is enormous. It's not difficult to predict that natural resources in general and oil in particular will increase in prices, and that obviously will drive forward energy efficiency. It will make more competitive alternative sources of energy. I see this almost as a blessing in disguise, while one should be very careful because a serious economic downturn would spread poverty, and we have seen with the food crisis how progress on the Millennium Development Goals can easily be undone by inflation of food prices. But on the energy side, clearly the inducement towards more efficient applications, towards greater emphasis on alternative sources of energy is enormous. Therefore, it's a mixed blessing, but clearly there are also positive upsides.